Hi everybody, this is Tor Storley and I am back with another video. And in this video, I thought I'll go back to R. I love R. I think R is the coolest. It's easy to work with. It doesn't have all the drawbacks that Python does with all these virtual environments you got to set up left and right. And I just feel at home in R, and I like R. So I am in R, and what I want to do today is show you how you can build some nice styled looking tables in R. And we're going to use a few different packages. In order to get some data, if you've seen my videos, you know that I usually get like stock data. And in this case, I'm going to get some stock data from the internet, from the Yahoo Finance, using the quantmod package. And we're going to use the tidyverse collection of packages, which is one of those popular collections of packages that most R users are using these days. We're also going to look at the GT package, which is the Great Table package. I don't know what GT stands for, but you could call it Great Tables because it allows you to basically format tables in a nice way, so you can make it look any way you want it to look, actually, because it lets you customize every part of the table. And finally, we're going to use the scales package to get some color coordinates into our data. So that's why I'm importing the four libraries you see: quantmod, tidyverse, GT, and scales. And in order to get some data, I need to have a start date. So I just randomly selected a date. I say, okay, let's go. I don't need the financial crisis data of 2008 or 9. So let's just start at 2014. That should be past that time. So I started January 1st in 2014, and I'll go through actually past today. Today is 9/26/2023, and I say, okay, give me data up through next month, first day of next month, and that will capture everything up till today, actually. And if you're familiar with the quantmod package in R, you know that you can use this get symbols function. And the quantmod package is quite nice. It saves you a lot of time, and it converts your data into something called an XST, I think it's called. It's built on the top of the zoo package, and it just makes working with dates and time series a lot easier. So all you really need is to pass in a ticker for ABV. In my case, you might wonder, why do you always use ABV? Well, it's part of my history. I used to work for this company for many, many, many years. And I also used to work for its predecessor, which was called Abbott Laboratories. And back in 2013, on January, we switched over to ABV. And the name ABV came from internally, it came from a vote, actually. People voted for the name. So that's where I'm coming from. The last 20 plus years, I've been working for those two companies. So I know a lot about those companies, and I know the internals of those companies. So I have a little idea what they're all about. They're healthcare, obviously. They produce drugs, and they sell drugs in the global arena. So anyways, I want to take a look at their stock AbbVie. I could go with Abbott too, but I guess AbbVie was the last company I worked for, so that's why I'm using it. So I'm creating a start date and an end date, as you can see here. And let's run that and see what happens. I'm going to import these packages, which I already, in case you don't know about R, what you want to do is you want to download R, and then you want to download RStudio afterwards. And when you open RStudio, like I did here, you're going to see, you can set up your options. You can choose what kind of appearance you want, what kind of, you can see here, you have a bunch of themes you can select from, and, you pick the one that you're happy with, and then you say apply, and then, You can also set up your code base, your general. You see, I'm pointing to this version of R, which is the latest one I downloaded recently, 4.3.1. So that's the latest R, and then I have my latest RStudio, the free version. Now, in case you wonder, you can always go to About RStudio, and you can see this is the build I'm using, and it's sit on the top of the R version I just showed you. So that's how you can get around to it. I strongly recommend you download the latest R code, and then you download the RStudio, the free version, unless you are going to use it in a corporate setting. And then you should be ready to go, and you set up your theme, and you set up your environment. If you have more than one install of R, like you can see here, I have more than one. I have some other ones here too, and you get 64, 32-bit and so on. But this is the one I'm running right now, and that's the one I set up the environment for by importing these packages you can see here. So I imported those packages. In case you wonder, you can go here to packages. You can say install with just a separate multiple with space or comma. So if I want to install this one, for example, in this environment, actually it tells me there was something happening here, but I don't know. I don't have time to look for it. And then when you're done, you can always search. For example, I can search for quantmod. So you can see quantmod is installed right here. And in order to check it, it will tell you now it's connected and now it's installed. Okay, so here we go. You can see it up here. So this is the daily prices. Here you can see 2014, January 3rd, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and so forth, because it was a weekend. But that's not necessarily what I want. Daily prices are okay, but I want to change them into monthly prices. Let me clean up this for you. So Control L in my Windows system to get rid of this stuff down here. So what I want to do is I want to create some monthly prices. So I can use the to-period function. And, sometimes in R, if you wonder what it means, just highlight it and hit F1. And it will tell you, how you can the help file for how to use this stuff. So it's comes in very handy. So I'm going to convert these daily prices into monthly prices, and open, high, low, close equals false. So I don't know why it's using this particular one, but let me just run it. It seems to work. So, okay, let's look at the first 5 and the last 5 prices. So here you can see there starts at January 1st. Actually, you start at the last month of January because I changed it to monthly. And then last day of February, last day of March, and so on, 2014. So here you can see the open, high, low, close, and volume, and adjusted prices. Now, adjusted prices is when you take the closing price and you adjust it for stock splits and dividend payouts and so forth. So that price will always be a little different than you see, for example, here, because it's been adjusted for those type of things, which is a better measurement actually. So I always use adjusted pricing in my analysis. Okay, so now the next thing we want to do is we want to convert the data into what is called a Tibble data object. Now, Tibble is an R specific thing, and it's part of the tidyverse ecosystem. Tibble is really a data frame for the tidy system. In order to do that, you can use this function asTibble and pass in the prices that you see below here. I also want to take the date. As you can see here, there's no header here. It's an index, okay? So the date is treated as an index, but I want it as a column. So I'm going to convert it into a column by using this method right here. So let me run that. And right now I got my app.v data. And if I go down here, I'm going to load this data into another table, a Tibble data table. But what I'm going to do is you could do this many different ways. This is one way of doing it. I could do this directly in a GT package too. But I'm going to rename these fields to be a little easier to read. So open instead of app.v open. Because if you look here, you can see it's ABV open, ABV high, ABV low. So it's kind of cumbersome. So I'm going to rename those columns, and then I'm going to select those fields, and that will be my final table data frame, if you will. So let me run that. So now we got that one. And what I want to do next is I want to create a GT table. Now, I may or may not need this. Depending how you write your code, it works or it doesn't work. So let me just do it anyway. So I have an option. So I generate another variable here holding that particular one. So now what I want to do is I want to start looking at my table. The first thing I want to do in this GT package, and because we're using a tidyverse syntax, you might notice this looks a little different than what I expected for dplyr, because for dplyr, this is what you're really used to. And this is a specific syntax, I guess, that was related to a package called magrittr package. Now, because R is evolving, and R 4.1, I believe the version was, they made a piping global variable equal to, much like you find in F# in this pipe delimiter. So it is a straight line and with a greater than sign. That would be the piping. The reason this might be important is because if you use this and you use the dplyr, yeah, it will work. But all those other packages, if you want to use those and pipe stuff, this might not necessarily work. So it's a more global. So I want to get used to using this one. I don't want to use that magrittr piping with a percentage greater than percentage, because that's limited in its usability. So going forward in R, if you're above 4.1, start using this one. That's what I would recommend. So here I'm taking my data frame, my table data frame, which is converted into a GT table, I guess. I'm not quite sure how that works, but if it still treats it as a table, then what I want to do is in the GT package, you can set different parameters depending on what you want to modify. So here I'm going to modify the table headers. So tab header, inside the parentheses, I give it a title, as you can see, and a subtitle. And then I pipe it, the result of this, down here, and I'm setting the column width. So I get it wider per column. And I'm going from my date column through my adjusted column, and I make it 120 pixels. And you have to use this tilde signs to do this. And then I'm displaying it. So let's see what that will look like. I'm going to run this now. And as you can see over here, it looks pretty nice. It put everything, spaced it out. I mean, I could make it wider than this, but it looks pretty decent, and it created a title and a subtitle. So it looks pretty nice, the default of this table. Obviously, you can do more to it. So for example, here, I'm using the same technique. I'm using the table header, but notice I'm using something called MD. And MD is a function in the GT package that will let you use markdown. That means you can write markdown syntax to format the stuff that you want to display in your table. So as you can see here, for those of you who knows markdown, you know that the double star means a bold. But you can also mix in HTML, as you can see I'm doing here. I'm making the font color blue for that title here, as you can see on the top. So it makes it very flexible. If you can see here, here's another markdown using in bold. And so let's run this and see what that one will look like. And as you can see now, it looks pretty cool. It's got a blue title and it has the from and the to bolded. So you can manipulate every part of this table and make it look really, really nice, any way you want it to be. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you now is a little bit beyond just table stuff. I'm using functions to generate variables so I can get max and min values. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to format this table dynamically. I don't want it just to be hard-coded. I don't want to read through this table and try to find the max price and the min price. I want to find it dynamically. And what I'm doing here, for example, is I'm finding the row where the min adjusted price, so in other words, if you look at the last column here, this one, I'm trying to find the row index number where the price is the smallest, and then I'm converting into an integer. And that's what happens in this piece of the code. And I'm loading it in here into the row, and then I do the same thing with a column. So as you can see here, I'm finding the column number, which of course it's the adjusted, so that's no surprise, I guess. But I'm also capturing, along with the min and max adjusted price, I'm capturing the volume at that point. So once I find the min and max here, I'm grabbing the volume as well. So it does two things basically. And then I'm loading those min and max values right here. And then I'm starting my HTML, as you can see, with bolding and colors and so forth. And in order to mix this with, say, the lowest price, the min and max, and to do some rounding, for example, I'm using the paste function. The paste function is like a concatenation kind of thing that will mix this piece with this piece. I'm converting a number into a character, and I'm making it 2 decimals, and then I'm finalizing the HTML string here. And then I'm combining the two here into this footnote L, which is low price, footnote H, which is high price, and footnote low volume price, and footnote high volume price. So I'm getting these guys, and then in my code, I put them in wherever they need to go. And I'm going to show you down here a little bit more. So let's just run one of these table creations. So let me make sure I get only up to where I need to go. For example, here. So I'm creating a table now based on the min and max price. If you look here now, notice this one here, adjusted. This is $33.27 some blah, blah, blah points, right? And if I keep scrolling down here, it's hard to see, but here you can see is number 2. So on the 30th of December 2022, that's when I found the highest price in this column. And I also capture those, as you can see down here. So you can indicate it by cells, and you can indicate it by footnotes for those cells. And that's exactly what I'm doing here in this GT package. I'm capturing those values in these variables. I'm creating the footnotes that I'm going to be displaying along with the colors and everything. And then here is when I actually apply it. So you can see I'm creating a footnote. I'm setting it into MD, which is markdown. And it's this one, footnote L, which is the one up here, right? This guy, where I combined the two with its HTML. So you can create some really, really cool looking dynamic values here into footnotes by a cell, by setting up the actual, location of where you wanted to go. So the cell's body, go to this column, and the row is going to be the index value where you find the min value, which I captured up here. So I'm going to make this code available for you in case you want to do something similar. I'll put it out in my GitHub repository when I'm done with this video. So don't worry about the code. I'll make that available for you. So anyways, you can see that there is the highest and lowest adjusted price. Now I got a second table here where I, in addition to the highest and lowest price, I'm adding in the headers, and I'm adding in with colors, and I'm adding in the volume that went along with those. And that's what this particular code is doing. So let's run that. And as you can see, Now I got it in blue here with the from and to is a bolded. I got my footnotes for both volume and the adjusted price. And if you scroll to the bottom, notice I even have the source, which is the Yahoo Finance. And the way you do that one is, as you can see here, I create a tab header, which has that formatting I showed you up there, which is the blue and this piece, right? This one. And then I have a tab source note. And I also use the markdown here. And I'm adding it in here. And I say use purple. Here's the source. And it's bold. You know, I'm using HTML here in italic. And when you look at it, that's what it looks like down here. So yeah, you can do that as well. Okay, another thing is that, you know, what if what if you're not from the US? What if you're from India or Europe or some other country, or, you know, you have different currencies. Now, we assume that, hey, we know this is US dollars, but how do I let you know that? Is there a way I can do that? Well, in the GT package, there is a function you can run, info currencies. So let's run that. And when I click run, you can see these are the currency codes it comes back with. And it will also give you information about what it will look like, for example. So if you look at the US dollars, for example, if I can find it, United States dollars, this is what it will look like when you print it out. You will use this symbol to print it out. So let's take a look at that. So here I'm taking my data frame and I'm formatting the table with this format currency. The rows, I want to apply this everywhere. As for all my data, I don't have to specify specific rows. I'll just say everything, like a function like this. And the columns, I want to go from the open through the close. I don't want the volume, but I also want the adjusted columns. Now you could do specifically like this, but this is a little more time saver, I guess. You go open through close because those 4 columns are right next to one another. And the last one I want is the adjusted. There's no separations here, but I want to use the euro. So let's say it was in euros. If I run this, this is what it will look like. Notice I got open through close has a euro sign. And the volume doesn't. And the adjusted has a euro sign as well. So that seems to work. Now, I happen to know that my table is not in euros, it's in dollars. So I'm changing it here into US dollars. But I'm also adding this. I want to change the font of the table. And I can specify a list of fonts. I can even go very eccentric by changing a specific Google font. So here I'm choosing a Roboto. If it finds it, it will use this. If it doesn't find it, we'll go here. If it doesn't find that one, we'll go here, and so forth. And as you can see now, it's in dollars. And it goes through from open through close, but not volume. And then it continues on adjusted. And also the font has changed because I changed it from the whatever the default was into Roboto, which is a Google font. So I like Roboto. It looks pretty cool. And you can see here, you can try different Google fonts as well, I guess. Now, another thing, if you notice my table here, notice the date is right aligned and open and everything is right aligned. I don't like that. I want it to be centered. And one way I can do that is by using this calls align function and set the align to center. Notice now they're centered right in the middle here. So it looks better. So that's another thing you can do. You can also start applying colors to the cells. If you look here, I have this data frame, the table, and I'm going to apply some colors. The method is based on numerics, and I want to go from red to green. So when I do that and I run this, as you can see, it starts filling in each cell with a bunch of colors, and it will go from the Red would be the lower values, towards green will be the higher values. As you scroll down here, you can see once you get higher values for the prices, they start turning green. So that's another method you can use. And of course, you can specify the columns you want to do this over. And it doesn't have to be all of them. Here, for example, I'm choosing only the adjusted column. And I also have some additional filters here. I'm saying only highlight the colors for those adjusted prices that are greater than $70 and less than $170. And use this palette. Okay? So in other words, it uses this particular palette, and the domain is from $70 to $170. So when I run that now, as you can see, not everything is turning into a color. But if I scroll down now, you can see, okay, here it is, $74. It's in purple. And as I go further down, as it goes higher, you can see it gets into light blue. And of course, it moves towards green. Here's 153 and is light green. So it changes color based on the value in this particular cell. So that's another thing you want to take a look at. One more thing, data colors in the GT package. Here you can see it. It tells you a little bit about it, and you can follow this. But what I did was I just kept scrolling down here till I got to this piece. Now there's some examples there you can take a look at and figure out the code they used to make those. So you can try those out. But what I did was I just went right here and I picked a color scheme because I'm used to this color brewer from earlier videos. I used those before. And I kind of like that yellow to green kind of thing. And that's why I picked, for example, in this code, you can see red, yellow, green. So that's one of these guys here. You can pick it out. So in any case, you can find all the different color palettes here. And I also, because I want to make my table look a little better, I applied the color scheme here, as you can see, between open and close only. I'm not including adjusted this time. If you want everything, you can use this function, everything. Another thing I did here was, here's my range. I do it dynamically from min to max value, because those are the values actually, this wouldn't work. This is bogus, because in order for that to work, I would have to capture the min value for open true close. So this is not correct. This should be adjusted. If I do it on adjusted, it should be correct, because min value is based on adjusted, max value is based on adjusted. But anyways, I'll just show you this anyway. I don't care about these values here. It's just a domain anyway. So it will go from 100 to 100 and, I don't know, 50 to 170 or something like that. I don't think any of these will be more than that anyway. So here is some table options. And notice what I'm doing here. I'm saying, the nice thing is you get IntelliSense. So once you type the word table, you hit period. Let me see if I can make that happen. So let me say table. And notice it gives you all this IntelliSense. And you can change your table to look according to every little part of it. For example, the border on the top color is going to be black. The bottom color is going to be black. The heading, I'm going to have a border under the heading that's going to be black. The column labels, the border on the bottom of the column labels, I want that to be black. And also the very end of the table, I want it to be black. And then I want to line the columns like we did before for that date true adjusted column. So let's run this piece and see what that will look like. Okay, so here you can see I did the color coding between open and close, which you can see up here. And my min and max was based on this column. So that may or may not be correct, but you get the idea. You can see the color coding. You can see it starts very low in the orange, red type of thing. And then as it moves up in price, you can see it gets greener and greener. And it gets dark green when we get very high prices. I got my footnotes. I got my foot source node. I got all my values marked in each cell. So, your footnotes are based on the cell values. You can see it here. You can see it here. You got your colors, you got your bold. So this is a very nice way of styling your R tables. And I really hope you liked this video. And if you do, please give me a like and give me a subscribe. And that way I can continue doing what I'm doing here. And hopefully we all gain some additional knowledge working together.